Your college basketball weekend is here.
Rise and fire. Count it. Instant classic. The slipper still fits.
When they need baskets, they go to them.
2 to tie, a 3 will win it.
From Cinderella runs to covering at the buzzer, we've got your winning playbook covered. This is BetMGM U with Chris Mack, RJ Choppy, and John Martin on the BetMGM Network.
And we are live coast to coast on the BetMGM Network every Friday night and Saturday morning. BetMGM U here for, well, you alongside RJ Choppy and John Martin. I'm Chris Mack. Don't forget, we're always available in podcast form as well. Find us inside your free Odyssey app, AUDACY, or wherever you get your podcasts. Just search BetMGM U. We got some SEC action we're going to break down a little bit later. A big Big 12 matchup in the rare late February non-conference matchup that is worth taking a look at, especially because one team has half the roster out with some kind of illness. Look, the flu's ripping through a lot of people, so I guess we shouldn't be surprised it's ripping through a major Big Ten program as well. We'll get to everything that's to come this weekend in just a couple of minutes here. Don't forget, you can watch the show as well on YouTube. Just look for the BetMGM Network. Make sure you're subscribed so you're getting up to date on absolutely everything and watching everything that we've got there for you as well. We'll talk about some of the teams, big name teams, blue blood programs in some cases, who are struggling. Not necessarily on the bubble watch yet, but they've got their issues. Let's start, though, with, we're almost a week removed now from what we will get the next couple of weeks, which is your bracket preview, right? I don't know how much of that is still applicable or relevant at this point because everybody's played a couple games since then, if not a few in some cases. But let's just talk about, I guess, the idea of the teams that are on the one line as of right now, right? And again, a lot has happened this week, but I think this is a good place to start because it's indicative of the SEC's dominance, as well as, I think, leads us in the direction of questioning just how solidified some of these spots may or may not be. The 4-1 seeds, when that bracket preview were released last weekend, John, were Auburn, Bama, Duke, and Florida. I think the first thing to ask ourselves is, how solid are those 1 seeds, you think? And second of all, is Bama going to keep giving up 100 points a night? But let's talk about the group of 4 at the top in general before we start to narrow down on one of them.
Well, yeah. I mean, listen, at the University of Memphis School of Journalism, they always say when you ask 2 questions, they're only going to get the second one answered.
True.
So
yeah.
I'm gonna forgive you here and get to your second question.
Poor question construction by me there, Johnny Journo.
Yeah,
I apologize.
I don't know what they're doing at
question.
Penn State. Yeah, I mean, just absolutely Power 5 athletics.
Honest, they
not
taught me a lot of things in the Penn State College of Communications, but not a lot of it stuck. You see, there was barley, there was hops, there was other stuff that impeded some of the neuron connection.
Stuck.
Yeah,
yeah, I would say, listen, as the only person here with a real, education that didn't go to school just to party, I'm happy to answer your first question. Which is, we've already seen a change. We've already seen a change in the top 4, right? Bama is going to come off that one line, and Houston is going to move in their place. I mean, obviously, what Houston has done, they won at Arizona over the weekend after the bracket reveal the same day. They stamped it with a win at Arizona State as well. They're first in the Big 12. They look like they're going to win it again. The Big 12 goes through Houston. We've talked about Kelvin Sampson on the show quite a bit. I mean, he's certainly consistently one of the best. But I think it's pretty solidified at this point. I mean, I'd be shocked if the 1 seeds aren't Auburn, Duke, Florida, and Houston. I mean, those are your 4. Maybe the order changes, right? Maybe, Duke is the number 1 overall if Auburn takes because that will happen. But I do think that this 4 that we just talked about with Bama coming out for Houston, that's going to ultimately be the final 4.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, obviously Auburn to me and Duke are as locks as it gets. Auburn is as locked as I've seen a number 1 seed. Now, they may not be the number 1, but they will be A1, and I think Duke will be as well. The issue that with Houston's going to run into, to me, is that the committee put them as the last 2 seed. So they would have to jump over. Now, A&M and Tennessee play this weekend, so like one of those will take care of themselves. But you know what? They got to jump over Purdue as well. That's a little bit of work. It's a little bit of work they're going to have to do. I think you're right, though. The committee ideally would probably like to spread it around. You don't want to have 3 SEC teams as 1 seeds. Now, if you have it, you have it. And if they all deserve it, then they all deserve it.
Right.
But I think Auburn is as locked into a 1. I agree with you on Alabama. And Alabama's issue, or one of their issues, is they still gotta go to Auburn. They still, dude, have you seen the rest of their schedule? They've got 5 games left. They play Kentucky, Mississippi State, at Tennessee, Florida, and at Auburn. Every single team is ranked in the top 21. 3 of them are in the top 6, and 2 of those in the top 6 are on the road. That's insane. I mean, they could look. It would not surprise anybody if they didn't end the year on a 7-game losing streak. Nobody would be surprised by that.
So I think there's a couple valuable questions to ask about Bama then. I think the first one is how much can you ding their resume for these losses? Like going on the road to Missouri and getting smoked for 100, you could look at it one of 2 ways. You can say, hey, it's on the road in the SEC. Missouri's playing really well the last 3.5 weeks, whatever it may be. You can't crush them for losing at Missouri. Maybe for giving up 100 points, sure. You can't crush them for losing to Auburn, even if it was at home. And then you laid out the schedule, Choppy. I mean, it's brutal down the stretch for Bama. And this is not me arguing for Bama to remain on the 1 line. I think it's just instructive of how the committee may talk about Bama. You look at KenPom right now, their adjusted opponent offense, number 1 most difficult so far as what they've faced, the strength of schedule-wise. They faced the most potent offenses when you average it all out in the country. So are we going to dock Bama so much that, A, we take them off the 1 line, and if they continue to lose, maybe they tumble even farther, John? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the beautiful part about playing the SEC is that, you're really not going to be in too much trouble. Like the committee will be pretty forgiving of quad 1 losses, home, road, whatever. I mean, I think there's a world where, they go on this 7-game losing streak, as RJ prophesized, and they're still a top 5 seed. I mean, that's the respect that the SEC, and they'll be deserving of that. I mean, I almost don't even care. I don't even care if you lose in the SEC. Like, you know what I mean? Unless it's a South Carolina or LSU, like I really just don't care that much because I just kind of assume my default setting is just going to be cannibalism. You know what I mean? Just the league is too damn good. So I think for those two, for those teams, you live to fight another day. You don't waste another second thinking about it in terms of the committee part of it. The ACC, yeah, that's a different story. But, Big 12, SEC, especially, I don't think you're losing really any sleep at all.
Yeah, and if you're Bama, and, let's just say, you've got a couple of potential flip-flop games. Like if you beat Florida, do you switch places with them? If you beat Tennessee and Tennessee's up, do you switch places with, or vice versa? If Bama's ahead, do they switch places with them? Auburn, I don't think Auburn's going to move. Right? Auburn's not moving off the 1 seed. They might move off the number 1, but they're not going to move off the 1 line. Mm-hmm. So I don't think that game matters. But they've got a couple of games. They play Florida at home, and then they go at Tennessee. They got opportunities to have 1 seed elimination type games.
All right, let's talk about a team then that is clearly tumbling and falling seed lines from the bracket preview last weekend when they were listed 15th overall and on the 4 line. They had a terrible week. Kansas continues to tumble. I see mostly 6s out there on them now. When I look at the bracket matrix, I see a couple 5s remaining. Hell, I even see a couple of 7s. Just how far can Kansas tumble, John? Do they... I mean, we've never seen a Bill Self team be seeded anything lower than 4.
Yeah, I mean, if the ceiling is the roof, I don't know. The commode is the floor for them.
The floor is quicksand.
You like the commode use there, boys? I mean,
that's good.
I do. Haven't heard that in a while.
That's
what my grandmother used to call it. Yeah, the commode.
You got an ice box in that house? You got a billfold? What are the kind of 1800s words you want to use?
Honey's clogged the commode again. Go get the plunger.
There we go. Yeah, man. So, I mean, listen, I don't know, 8-9 feels about right for them. And they will, and let me just like get this out of the way right now. No, they will not be a dangerous 8-9 team. They will not be a dangerous 7 team. They will not be a dangerous 5-4-3-2-1 team. They're just not very good. They're not very deep. There's a reason why these guys are still in school, man, because they can't go pro. They can't go to the league. So I think at some point there does become sort of this critical mass with, okay, I get he's a good college basketball player, but he's 27 years old. Why is he still here? And I think we're there, with Hunter Dickinson and DeJuan Harris. So yeah, I mean, I think you're seeing it in real time. Bill Self kind of went all in on on this group that he had. He didn't really hit the portal very hard. He brought in Zeke Mayo. He brought in AJ Storr, that was a miss. Rylan Griffin, who I had higher hopes for as a shooter, hasn't really found that consistency. But, I mean, he went all in with the guys that he had in KJ Adams, Hunter Dickinson, and DeJuan Harris. And, boys, we make bets every day. And sometimes those bets win, and sometimes those bets lose. And for Bill Self, that bet lost.
Yeah, it has. It's weird. Like, all the years they're really good, they've got like a top 30 offense. Their offense is barely top 60. Their defense has been solid. And the problem with them has been road games. They can't win road games. I don't even want to say they can't win them consistently. They just can't win them. There's no shame in losing to Houston at home, right? There's no shame, even if it's in Lawrence. There's no shame in losing to Houston. But you go on the road and you lose to Baylor and you lose to K-State. I'm not going to kill you for losing to Utah and BYU out in the mountains in 47,000 feet.
Well,
Hunter
the way
Dickinson,
they lost to BYU is the problem, Choppy. It's not that they lost in Provo. It's that they got absolutely just dismantled.
No, I know, but Hunter in the altitude looks like he's running in sand. He's on a beach. He's not moving very well. But John's right about the age thing. I mean, there's a fine line. There's a fine line that you can get in this sport right now, in all of college athletics, between you're old and in the sport because you're just not good enough, and then the other line is that you're really, really good, but you're like a grown man, and you can bully these kids. And I think Kansas is on the wrong side of that line right now.
I agree. It's like our guy at Utah football, right? Cam Rising.
Oh, Cam Rising.
Yep.
Yeah. I think he's back again, right? He won't move on.
8 years. Damn. Let's go, baby.
Bro.
Make a career out of it. He's like Tommy Boy.
Bro, he came into college during the Obama administration. Like, you got to go.
That's all right.
I mean, that's not exactly true, but still, like.
Lots of people go to college for 7 years, Richard. Yeah. They're called doctors.
Crazy.
Real quick, you talked about live 8-9 teams when we get to the tournament, John. I'm going to throw 3 names out there that are all currently sitting on the 8-9 line. Big names, right? Teams that have gone super deep into tournaments before, teams that have won championships recently, teams that have gone to the Final Four repeatedly. UConn lost to Seton Hall last weekend. They bounced back a little bit against Nova midweek. Gonzaga, they're just sort of shuffling along in the WCC, waiting for the tournament to get here. Baylor now 65th in the country in defensive efficiency and barely above water. Like their nose and their chin are above water and they're doggy paddling. 8-7 in the Big 12. Any of these 3 teams, UConn, the Zags, Baylor, dangerous 8-9s if they end up going into the tournament on those lines.
I would say Gonzaga of the 3 for sure, because they can definitely throw 3 different big men at you that are talented, offensively. Whereas Baylor doesn't have anybody above 6'5" playing for them right now. UConn's bigs aren't that skilled. I mean, Samson Johnson, Terrence Reed can come in and give you some physicality. He's been pretty good, but that's one guy. He can get in foul trouble pretty easily, and they don't have much of an answer, after him. So I would say Gonzaga. Gonzaga is a team that I think can still make a run here. We saw them at their best against Baylor, and I know Baylor hasn't been the team we thought they'd be coming into the year, but like they're still, to me, a level to unlock with Gonzaga, whereas I think UConn and Baylor are pretty capped.
Honestly, I think all of them. Baylor could throw that zone at you, which if you're not prepared, if you don't play against it ever, it could mess with you, man. And here's the thing with UConn. UConn is like the team that they've played in so many big games over the years. It's hard to get up for a game against Xavier, right? It's just hard. Like they've won at Texas. They've beaten Baylor. They've beaten the Zags. They beat Marquette. They beat Creighton, even though they lost to Creighton too, but they still beat them as well. They've beaten the teams they've gotten up for. I think they can still be dangerous.
It'll be interesting to see where they end up, too, because with a few regular season games left, maybe they steady the ship. Still wildly inconsistent from night to night. Big 12, SEC, and the rare non-conference matchup in late February. We preview 3 massive games coming up next right here on BetMGM.
You've been listening to BetMGM on the BetMGM network. If you missed any of the show, listen back anytime on the Odyssey app. Download the BetMGM app today. Please gamble responsibly. Get ready to experience the ultimate fusion of wagering and entertainment. This is the BetMGM Network. Kicking off your morning with the Daily Tip with Michael Jenkins and Chelsea Messenger.
Over.
It's a very simple way to look at it. It's the best way to look at it.
Followed by the newly branded Bet Sweats with Joe O and Sammy P.
When I stop talking, that's when you jump in usually.
He said, ring that bell! He said, ring that bell!
Then it's You Better You Bet, hosted by Nick Costos and Femi Abebefe.
Great teams and great players get a whistle. It's happened forever. It will continue to happen.
Capped off every night with the electric Brad Evans and Ryan Horvath on BetMGM tonight.
Oh, that's a sexy phrase.
Quote Dr. Dre, creep with me and walk with me on this one.
Welcome to a new era of wagertainment. This is the BetMGM Network. Please gamble responsibly. Get ready to experience the ultimate fusion of wagering and entertainment. This is the BetMGM Network. Kicking off your morning with the Daily Tip with Michael Jenkins and Chelsea Messenger.
Over.
It's a very simple way to look at it. It's the best way to look at it.
Followed by the newly branded Bet Sweats with Joe O and Sammy P.
When I stop talking, that's when you jump in usually.
He said, ring that bell! He said, ring that bell!
Then it's You Better You Bet, hosted by Nick Costos and Femi Abebefe.
Great teams and great players get a whistle. It's happened forever. It will continue to happen.
Capped off every night with the electric Brad Evans and Ryan Horvat on BetMGM tonight.
Oh, that's a sexy phrase.
Quote Dr. Dre, creep with me and walk with me on this one.
Welcome to a new era of wagertainment. This is the BetMGM Network. Please gamble responsibly. Let's get back to BetMGM U on the BetMGM Network.
On YouTube, you just search for the BetMGM Network, and bang, you find it. We're right there. Also with you live coast to coast on the BetMGM Network every Friday night and Saturday morning, live coast to coast. Also, wherever you might be in the world, inside your Odyssey app, AUDACY, might be where you can find us in podcast form as well. Probably wherever you get your podcast. Just search BetMGMU. You'll find me, Choppy, John Martin, hanging out, talking college hoops. This time of year, we'll get you our best bets before we wrap up. And maybe even look at some possible tournament futures, whether it be conference tournament futures or NCAA tournament futures before we wrap up. 3 very big games. We want to take a look at those specifically this weekend. And we'll start Saturday, 2 Eastern, 1 Central in Houston. The number 5 Cougars hosting the number 8 Iowa State Cyclones. Projecting the spread somewhere around 8. That feels a little big to me. Total at 136. You guys know I love Houston unders. They're currently in full control of first place in the Big 12. 2-game lead over Arizona after their victory in Tucson last weekend, minus 1,400 to win the Big 12. Iowa State, 4-0 since the return of the big man, Milan. I don't try to say his last name because I say it wrong every time, who missed 7 games earlier in conference play with a hand injury. Over 10 points a game, 3 rebounds a game on the season. Their first meeting of the year, John. Iowa State went 2-1 against Houston last year for what it's worth, including in the Big 12 tournament game, a big win. But Houston hitting their stride, and like we've said before, winning games however they have to.
Yeah, I don't. I very rarely bet against Houston. I actually, all I've been doing lately is just kind of betting on them. I bet on them against Arizona. I bet on them against Kansas. Now, some would say I got lucky. I say I that's why I bet on Houston, because they'll nut up, down 6 with 12 seconds left, like any good team will.
Yeah.
No, I got lucky as hell. Let me make that very clear. But no, that's certainly just never a team that I'm excited to fade. I rarely do it. I did bet Colorado against them. Let me give you a little bit. I'm going to give this away a little bit about Houston basketball. It's a point I maybe have made on this show, or maybe not. I don't know. I can't keep up. But Kelvin Sampson is like an honest man. And what I mean is if like his team is in a funk, or his team is hurt, or his team is just kind of like in desperate need of rest, or whatever the case may be, he will tell you that. And almost every time that happens, the next game they come out and they look bad. They look like they need rest. They look like they're banged up, whatever. That was what happened against Iowa State in the Big 12 championship game. Kelvin Sampson was basically saying, I don't care about this stupid tournament. We're locked into what we are. I got my big man who's dealing with injury. I'm not going to sit here and who cares about a Big 12 tournament championship? We won the regular season, and he didn't play his big man, Juwan Roberts, nearly as much. I think this is one where they could pour it on. I do. Kelvin Sampson is going to want to do that against this Iowa State team, and they're better with Momcilovic, trust me. But I think Houston's in their absolute mode right now, and I could see them squashing Iowa State this weekend.
I have not heard a guy who got a 5-year show cause penalty be referred to as an honest man. But I like it. I'm here for it, okay?
Since you want to bring up old stuff, okay? What he got fired for is like encouraged today. I mean, it's the texting kids, calling kids, it's insanity. It's insanity. And now Indiana's open. He wouldn't even take the call. He wouldn't even take the call from Indiana today. That's what's amazing. And I don't know if that's your Dallas coming out. I think it's frankly disgusting that you would bring that agenda to the show. I cannot believe you.
We do call it the armpit of Texas, Houston.
See? He let it out.
Here it comes.
Listen, my sister went to OU. That's like my second school. But who got it worse? Tressel, Pearl, or Kelvin? All those are fine now.
Yeah. I mean, Pearl lied though. That was the thing. He lied about it.
Yeah, he lied. He lied. That's it. They all lied. They all lied about it.
I think Tressel had the tattoo thing, right? That was all the memorabilia stuff. Yeah. I mean, he probably got it the worst.
Yeah.
So now he's like lieutenant governor or something, isn't he? I mean, isn't he like the second highest ranked man in Ohio?
Maybe they both are.
That's what it is. Yeah, it's look, Houston's really they're tremendous, and this win pretty much locks them to me into the 2 seed at least, and that's a big. This might be a 2 seed elimination game. If Iowa State were to go to Houston and win, then maybe they move up on the 2 line, and do you really want to be on the 2 line over the 3 line? Yeah, you probably do. Although the 6-11 is the new 5-12, is it not? And I'd much rather play an 11 seed than maybe the 7 if you're the 2. So maybe the 3 seed isn't all that bad, but, coaches and players, they don't think like that. They just try to win every game they're playing, unless you're trying to just give up a tournament game. But I think I'm kind of with you, Chris, man. The under in these games, in these Houston games, it would not surprise me if this is 55-48 at all.
I mean, they're 361st in the country in adjusted tempo. I mean, that tells you all you need to know. I get it.
Yeah.
Probably 1 out of every half dozen games, they end up scoring because they have to beat a team, right? And they did have a run of like 4 or 5 overs in a row earlier this month, late January into early February. But I will say some of those overs were like cashing an over at like 140. And you only getting those numbers because it's Houston and because everybody knows that adjusted tempo number. Everybody knows the defense and how they play. I don't care. I'll keep hitting Houston unders as long as they keep coming in at a rate, better than 55% or whatever it may be. I think you're right about this being somewhat of an elimination game. I think it'll be interesting to see how it affects seeding. I think Houston should be on the 1 line already. John mentioned that earlier when we get the bracket preview this weekend. Wouldn't surprise me at all if they sneak up onto the 1 and Bama drops to a 2. But I do think it's going to be tough for certain members of the committee to drop Alabama off the 1 line, even with 2 losses, because, well, look at who they're losing to. I think the quality of loss will be brought up a lot in those meetings. Saturday night, neutral site at MSG in New York. We get the rare late-season non-conference matchup, Illinois against the number 3 Duke Blue Devils. I don't know. Ken Palm's got this projected at 9, John. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised to see it in the double digits by the time it tips off. Illinois, ravaged by the flu right now. Freshman big man Morez Johnson went out earlier this week. Duke has looked really good since that ugly loss to Clemson a couple weeks ago. I would lay upwards of 10, 11, maybe 12 on this and feel okay about it if Illinois is limping into this game the way they are.
Yeah, I mean, look, I would say there's certainly no shame losing it at Little John Coliseum. Lots of teams have done it. Kentucky's done it. Duke has now done it. I mean, look, Memphis won there, but everybody can't be Memphis. Everybody can't just go into Clemson and win. I mean, that's just not.
I'm like, what is he angling on here when you start talking about it? I'm like, oh, yeah, it's got to come back to Memphis, doesn't it?
Like, you guys always act like I have an agenda. I mean, that is only the case 99 out of 100 times. Yeah, this Illinois team, man, it is absolutely broken. I hate it. I loathe the way they play. And that was when they were healthy and not sick. I mean, it is like, they say like when you're in a relationship, and your partner gaslights you, they make you feel like what are you talking about? I didn't do that. What do you mean? Like, that's what Illinois does. They gaslight you into thinking that they can shoot the ball well because they take 43s a game, but they never go in. So why do you keep shooting them? I mean, it's just insanity. I hate the way they play. It's no surprise to me that they're fading here down the stretch. Again, this is going to be a team, I promise you, that people are going to say, this is a team that nobody – yes, people are going to want to play Illinois because they play one way and they're not successful in doing so. So I do think Duke kills them. I think Duke rolls this weekend.
Look, gaslighting is the only relationship move I have. So I don't know what everyone's so
I've
down
always
on
said
that about.
RJ Choppy is the Fighting Illini of relationships.
At least I'm not Illini football. That's just boring. Run, pass, punt, R2P2. I'll tell you this, Duke better win because their resume kind of stinks. I mean, I can't think of a 1 seed that's going to wind up having fewer quad 1 wins than Duke's going to wind up having when they ultimately become a 1 seed. I mean, it's really a pathetic schedule. And they are clinging to that Auburn win, clinging to it. So they better win this basketball game. I don't like to touch numbers above 155. That's high. That's really, really high. I would probably stay away from this one. I think Duke's probably going to cover the 9, but I mean, it would not surprise me if they didn't. It's a team they're not used to playing. It's always scary. It's always scary to me. So I'd probably stay away from this one.
Yeah, I mean, they've won 7 straight at MSG. It's kind of like a home away from home for them. Yeah. They've played there, I want to say, 11 of the last 12 years now. And I think more to the point, what John said about Illinois, they're just a dumpster fire. And they're a dumpster fire that's having more gasoline poured on it via all the illnesses and the injuries now. So, again, this thing could get out to like
that's what happens, right? That's what happens is all of a sudden, I got the flu, I got mono, I got tendonitis, I got this, I got bursitis, I got whatever. It's all just BS. It starts to become all BS, and team comes apart. So, yeah, I think Illinois is a fade. That's what I would say. They're just a fade. If you can fade, and again, you're going to see that. You're like, man, 9 against Illinois. They are awful.
Yeah. Early tip Saturday at College Station. The Aggies hosting Choppy's Volunteers. I wonder if he'll make the drive down for this 11 a.m. Eastern tip-off. No, of course he won't. It's too early for him on a weekend. Tennessee's won 4 of their last 5, including an impressive comeback last Saturday against Vandy. Outscored the Commodores 50-32 in the second half. A&M fresh off a 16-point loss Tuesday night at Mississippi State, John, where they shot just 36% from the field. Tennessee hasn't won in College Station since 2019. I mean, A&M should bounce back in this one. They should handle it, but this is a no-touch for me. Like Choppy said about Duke, playing Illinois, this is a no-touch for me on either side, Tennessee or A&M. Maybe under with the number up there at 166, but I'd have to think about that some more.
That can't be right.
166?
That's what it says.
It would take us a week to get to 166.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, that just seems. It feels 20 points too high.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's 64-63 at KenPom. So I don't know where.
That would be 127.
So it was 40 points too high. So
just 40.
Mack was like, listen. Mack was like, "There's value on the over here. You got to be the over."
May want to look at the under here.
Yeah, I was like, 166. I mean, that's a real upgrade of Tennessee's offense.
Listen,
yeah, I mean, I know
it's got a better. The over/under has a better chance of being 66 than 166.
Yeah,
there's
I like
no
it,
chance. There's no
definitely.
chance.
That's my best bet for the weekend. Under 166 for sure.
You can get that on an alt line at like minus 3,000.
Yeah, so there it is. Over under 129. Listen, I don't know. I'm kind of interested in Texas A&M here, the spot. Tennessee has been, they were down 13 on the road at Vanderbilt at half. And that Vanderbilt team is better than we probably all expected. But certainly they're not supposed to be up on Tennessee 13 at the half. Texas A&M coming off a tough loss. And I think there's a world where their physicality is just a little bit too much. Tennessee just always scares me. Betting them because, especially against similarly talented teams, because they just have that one consistent source of offense in Lanier. And if he has a bad game, which he typically has had against good SEC teams, they don't really have anywhere to go. So I kind of do like A&M in the game. I could probably, if it's 2, I think it'll be probably bigger than that. But I think I could get involved in A&M here.
It's the road. They don't play. Tennessee doesn't play well on the road. And this is another thing. Like, if Tennessee were to win this game on the road at number 7, they would probably be ahead of Houston, I think. Just because where they are right now, 5, Tennessee's at 5 in the committee and Houston's at 8. So I think if they were to win this game, it might jump them to the 1. I just don't ever have any faith in them to win on the road. They don't play well on the road. They've never played well on the road consistently. Lanier does not shoot well on the road. The team as a whole doesn't play well on the road. I don't trust Texas A&M though either. I really don't. Like I know I actually think they are better suited for the tournament because they have good guard play than they are for regular season ball. Like I don't trust them at all. This is 1,000% a game that I would probably stay away from. If it was 166,
if it was 166,
that's absolutely my best bet on the under at 129.
Sure?
Man, I'm positive.
Sure?
I'm good. At 129, I might be tempted to take the over. That's a low number. 129, you're scooting into Army-Navy territory right there at 129.
Iowa football time. So we'll take a look at some over-unders as far as what the field will look like when we get to the NCAA tournament in just a moment. Plus, our best bets on the way. We are live coast to coast on the BetMGM network. This is BetMGM U.
You've been listening to BetMGM U on the BetMGM network. If you missed any of the show, listen back anytime on the Odyssey app. Download the BetMGM app today. Please gamble responsibly. Get ready to experience the ultimate fusion of wagering and entertainment. This is the BetMGM Network. Kicking off your morning with the Daily Tip with Michael Jenkins and Chelsea Messenger.
Over.
It's a very simple way to look at it. It's the best way to look at it.
Followed by the newly branded Bet Sweats with Joe O and Sammy P.
When I stop talking, that's when you jump in usually.
He said, ring that bell! He said, ring that bell!
Then it's You Better You Bet, hosted by Nick Costos and Femi Abebefe.
Great teams and great players get a whistle. It's happened forever. It will continue to happen.
Capped off every night with the electric Brad Evans and Ryan Horvat on BetMGM tonight.
Oh, that's a sexy phrase.
Quote Dr. Dre, creep with me and walk with me on this one.
Welcome to a new era of wagertainment. This is the BetMGM Network. Please gamble responsibly. Get ready to experience the ultimate fusion of wagering and entertainment. This is the BetMGM Network. Kicking off your morning with the Daily Tip with Michael Jenkins and Chelsea Messenger.
Over.
It's a very simple way to look at it. It's the best way to look at it.
Followed by the newly branded Bet Sweats with Joe O and Sammy P.
When I stop talking, that's when you jump in usually.
He said, ring that bell. He said, ring that bell.
Then it's You Better You Bet, hosted by Nick Costos and Femi Abebefe.
Great teams and great players get a whistle. It's happened forever. It will continue to happen.
Capped off every night with the electric Brad Evans and Ryan Horvat on BetMGM tonight.
Oh, that's a sexy phrase.
Quote Dr. Dre, creep with me and walk with me on this one.
Welcome to a new era of wagertainment. This is the BetMGM Network. Please gamble responsibly. Let's get back to BetMGM on the BetMGM Network.
Live coast to coast every Friday night and Saturday morning. It is BetMGM brought to you by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. Alongside John Martin and RJ Choppy, I'm Chris Mack. We get you ready for the action every single weekend. Always in podcast form, too. If you'd rather get us there as soon as we're ready to go, you just go to wherever you get your podcast, preferably that free Odyssey app, AUDACY, and search BetMGM. You take us with you wherever you're going, whatever you're doing to get ready for the weekend. You can watch as well on YouTube. Just search for the BetMGM Network. We'll get you our best bets in just a couple of moments. But let's start with some over-unders on, well, different conference over-unders. How many teams we expect to be in certain spots once the tournament rolls around. We'll roll through each of these one by one, boys. Let's start with 1 seeds for the SEC in March. We talked about the one line. 3 teams there as of right now, but we suspect Bama likely could drop off the one line for that bracket preview this weekend. Maybe Houston jump up on the one line. But by the time the tournament field gets set in a few weeks, John, 1 seeds from the SEC in March, over under 2.5.
Yeah, we're going to definitely say under. We're gonna go with
Under.
2.
Under. He's
Yeah.
going 2, Choppy.
Yeah, because Duke's not going anywhere, and I think Houston jumps Houston jumps Purdue because Purdue lost to Michigan State, and Houston jumps Texas A&M, who just lost to Mississippi State. So I think that's going to drop. That's going to drop A&M. Houston's going to jump up. So I'm going to go 2.
I'm going to go the over. There's too many teams. Alabama, Florida, A&M, Tennessee, Auburn. Those are 5 teams that are all or were all before this weekend seeded ahead of Houston. Houston was the 8th seed. That's just too high. It's too high for them to have to go. They still got a difficult game against Iowa State coming up. I think you're going to wind up getting 3. You know that one of them is going to be Auburn. And then, we'll see what happens. Florida's got a game against Alabama. Bama's got a game against Tennessee. Bama's got a game against Auburn. I think you're going to wind up getting 3 in there.
See, I'm back and forth on this because I think Houston's been seeded too low or ranked too low throughout the season. I think a win over Iowa State should have them solidly, right there in the 4-5 range, right? Like right on the cusp of a 1 seed. But here's the thing. I do think Bama's going to get, I guess, not credit for bad losses if they have them down the stretch because the way the schedule stacks up, Choppy laid it out earlier, Kentucky, Mississippi State, at Tennessee, Florida, at Auburn. But I think that's going to help Bama in effect. They win, 3 out of those 5. I think they might end up staying put on the 1 line. I'm going to go over 2.5 as well as I sit here and ramble back and forth on both sides. All right, tournament teams in the ACC. How many ACC teams do we actually end up getting in the field of 68, John Martin? The over-under, we'll set it at 3.5.
This is sharp.
It is sharp.
All right, so ACC, we know we got 1. We know we got 2.
Yep.
I mean, who else am I hoping for?
You're looking at Clemson, Maryland, and Louisville, right?
Probably.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So 3.5. Yeah. So okay, it is 4 then. But
I think it's 4.
That's well. Hold on. Maryland's not in the ACC. Maryland's in the Big Ten.
Oh yeah. No.
What year am I in?
Yeah.
Wake. Sorry. What year am I in, man?
They probably should be in the Big Ten, but yes. So yeah, Wake Forest would be that 14, right?
Yeah, as right now, probably sitting as an 11, playing a play-in games, but that still counts.
Yeah. I think they get 3.
I'm still so mad about Maryland. I'm still so mad that Maryland left. I know it was like 10 years ago, but it's it doesn't jive with me.
Oh, also SMU, fake good team. SMU is on that bubble. Yeah, they'll get 4 because one of SMU or Wake will make it. Controversially, it will be controversial when they make it, but it will be one of those 2. So I'll go over.
Choppy, if we're not counting Maryland. Yeah.
I'll go over because I think Wake's in. I think Wake is going to wind up getting in. But John's right. It's going to be Wake or SMU. So I'll take the over.
I'm going to say under. I think it's just Duke, Clemson, Louisville. I think that's it. And I think that soft underbelly of the middle, the mediocre ACC, they've all still got an ugly loss left somewhere on their schedule. Wake, SMU, whoever else. Is there anybody else that's really? No, there's not really anybody else that's approaching the bubble anymore in the ACC. Pitt was earlier this year, but they've pretty much killed themselves. Over under second weekend teams from the Big East. We'll set it at 1.5, John. Second weekend team. So Sweet 16 or deeper for the Big East. Over under 1.5.
I'm pretty low as a whole on the Big East. But you got St. John's, who I think is a second weekend team.
Yep.
Then you got what? Creighton, right?
Creighton
Marquette.
or UConn?
Marquette.
I'll say over, but I think it's only 2. I think it's St. John's and Creighton. I'm low on Marquette. I just think they, They play such a style. I mean, obviously, it always depends on the matchup, but I just don't really think they have a style that's necessarily built for deep runs. Sweet 16 perennially feels like their ceiling. So I'll say over, but it's more Creighton, which has done it before, and St. John's.
I'll say the over as well. I'll tell you this. We could sit here and laugh right now, but the last thing that a 1 seed wants to see is UConn in the 8-9. There isn't a 1 seed in America. Not Auburn, not Duke, nobody. Nobody wants to get. You imagine Alabama being a 1 seed. Alabama's never a 1 seed. And they see UConn in the second game. Come on now.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's excited about it, but I don't know if a 1 seed not being excited to see you necessarily means that you're going to upset them into the Sweet 16. Right. I think I'm on the under here. Like I'm not high on Creighton or Marquette. I think UConn has shown us exactly what they are, which is they have no idea what the hell they are. And I think St. John's is the only one that makes it through the Sweet 16 from the Big East. And you're going to have a lot of people complaining about it after the fact about the strength of that conference. All right, one more real quick. One Big Ten team in the Elite Eight, over, under. Big Ten teams in the Elite Eight, more or less than one, John.
Man, that's another team that's another league that I'm just not really that excited about, man. I mean, you really want me to believe Wisconsin? I mean, every time I watch Michigan State, I'm like, why do they keep winning? Like, it just doesn't really make sense on paper, Yeah. What's the total here? One big team. I'm gonna say under. I ain't buying it. I'm going under.
Yeah, it's a push at best.
Right.
I'll take the under. There's
no point in going over here because at worst we're just going to push this bet, Yeah. Whereas I think we could wind up. People always complain. They're like, "Why don't you have any Big Ten?" Because the Big Ten stinks, man. I mean, you're the best you're giving me is Wisconsin, who, like, granted, like they're running super hot from offensively, but yeah. But Purdue, I think they showed you the worst parts of them in that Michigan State loss. They have two guys that they can get scoring from, and the rest of it is just useless. So that is not a team that I will be looking to get behind in any shape or form in the tournament.
Fair.
Yeah,
I think we probably, if the number's 1, I think we push. I think Wisconsin gets to the Elite Eight, but that's probably their absolute ceiling, which brings us to our best bets for this week. John, get us started. What do you got for us this weekend?
Yeah, I'm gonna go A&M -2 if that's what you guys are telling me what the line is. Choppy talked about the Vols. Well, we look. That's what we do. I bet against Memphis all the time. I bet against Memphis against Wichita State. I gave it out to you clowns. You asked for a bet. A bet came down from the gods. They said, Here you go, BetMGM Wichita +8, and we didn't even need the points. So you got to be willing to say, hey, I like this team, I like this university, I like this program, but I see a financial opportunity. All right, and so that is where I feel you need to be with Texas A&M at home -2 bounce back spot for them. I think they get it done.
Hold on, I'm going to read the key text from that thread Saturday morning from John Martin. I don't need much reason to fade Memphis laying a big number on the road. Disclaimer: I'm wrong almost 50% of the time.
There you go. I like that.
Hey, like RJ would say, not legal advice.
Not legal.
Like Kelvin Sampson would say. Like Kelvin Sampson would say. I'm just being honest.
I'm not texting, man. I'm not texting. I'm just texting. Okay, this is WhatsApp. I'm not texting. Okay, it's not a text. It's on Facebook Messenger. I appreciate the Wichita State. I screwed it up by betting Drake. Here we go. The over in the Kentucky-Alabama game. I don't know what it is. I don't care what it is. You couldn't put that number high enough.
It's going to be an NBA total.
Yeah.
210.
If that number is anything below, if it's anything below 160, I'm hammering it. Maybe a mortgage payment. Probably not. I don't have that kind of guts. But it is the over in Kentucky, Alabama. I don't care what that number is. I'm probably going to bet it.
All right. Hold on. Is it up as a projected total yet at KenPom? I feel like we should get ahead of that one.
Well,
I'm
said
glad
174, but I don't believe that.
Liars. 180 before tip, at least.
Can you imagine?
And I'll still take the over.
And I'll
probably
still take it.
I'm glad John mentioned Wisconsin and how hot they have been lately. They have not lost at home in Big Ten play yet this year, I don't believe. And Oregon comes in looking like Oregon 2-7-1 against the spread in their last 10. I don't care if this thing gets out to 9 points. I think Wisconsin takes care of business at home against Oregon this weekend. So even if it's out to 9.5, I will be on that one this weekend. Disclaimer, I'm wrong at least 50% of the time. I feel like that needs to go in the tagline for BetMGMU going forward. I'm sure we'll have another bracket preview that will be blown out of the water by the time we get back on the air. I'm sure we'll have some more wild upsets. I'm sure Alabama may give up another 250 points or so, but there will be plenty to happen this week that we will talk about again next week right here on BetMGMU on the BetMGM Network.
You've been listening to BetMGMU on the BetMGM Network. If you missed any of the show, listen back anytime on the Odyssey app. Download the BetMGM app today. Please gamble responsibly. Get ready to experience the ultimate fusion of wagering and entertainment. This is the BetMGM Network. Kicking off your morning with the Daily Tip with Michael Jenkins and Chelsea Messenger.
Over.
It's a very simple way to look at it. It's the best way to look at it.
Followed by the newly branded Bet Sweats with Joe O and Sammy P.
When I stop talking, that's when you jump in usually.
He said, ring that bell! He said, ring that bell!
Then it's You Better You Bet, hosted by Nick Costos and Femi Abebefe.
Great teams and great players get a whistle. It's happened forever. It will continue to happen.
Capped off every night with the electric Brad Evans and Ryan Horvat on BetMGM tonight.
Oh, that's a sexy phrase.
Quote Dr. Dre, creep with me and walk with me on this one.
Welcome to a new era of wagertainment. This is the BetMGM Network. Please gamble responsibly. Get ready to experience the ultimate fusion of wagering and entertainment. This is the BetMGM Network. Kicking off your morning with the Daily Tip with Michael Jenkins and Chelsea Messenger.
Over.
It's a very simple way to look at it. It's the best way to look at it.
Followed by the newly branded Bet Sweats with Joe O and Sammy P.
When I stop talking, that's when you jump in usually.
He said, ring that bell. He said, ring that bell.
Then it's You Better You Bet, hosted by Nick Costos and Femi Abebefe.
Great teams and great players get a whistle. It's happened forever. It will continue to happen.
Capped off every night with the electric Brad Evans and Ryan Horvat on BetMGM tonight.
Oh, that's a sexy phrase.
Quote Dr. Dre, creep with me and walk with me on this one.
Welcome to a new era of wagertainment. This is the BetMGM Network. Please gamble responsibly.